everybody. It's Payday, and you're listening to the Payday Podcast with me, your host, Samantha Mantra. Today's episode, we are going to be discussing scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset is a mindset that tricks us into thinking that things are not good, even when they are good, and it really prevents us from evaluating our current circumstances honestly. So we're going to talk about what we do when things feel impossible, and we're going to talk about beginnings and endings. But the thing about beginnings and endings is that they have their own power. Beginnings are a kind of reset button, and as we are at the end of January, entering into February, I want to ask y'all a very, very important question. How do you talk to yourself? Specifically, how do you talk to yourself when you're thinking of changing big things about your life and your lifestyle? Perhaps you're like, this gotta be the year I get rich. Can't take this much longer. This paycheck to paycheck cycle, it hurts. Perhaps you are talking to yourself through education. I have to get this degree. I have to get this degree. You can hear, right, some of my own internal narrative coming through where you get very focused, or I get very focused, and I put blinders up and I look at nothing but the goal. What is your internal narrative? And that question, the answer to that question, is going to become very important as I talk through how we defeat a scarcity mindset, which is the topic of today's episode. Defeating a scarcity mindset is very important because mindsets are not just Instagram posts and your best woo-woo friend. Mindsets are actually something that is studied in psychology, and I'm going to be referencing some studies done by psychology today and also some reporting done by NPR throughout this episode, because I don't believe in just serving you my opinion. What you should know about scarcity and scarcity mindset overall is that it's really powerful and it's really automatic. You don't choose to have a scarcity mindset. Your brain will snap you right into that mindset if it feels that you have unfulfilled needs, not wants. And it's really powerful because it puts the blinders up. It creates a focus on dealing with pressing needs and ignoring all other goals. So for example, if you're like, I gotta get money, perhaps you forgot to call mom back for 2 weeks. Just an example. No shame here. Or perhaps if time, you feel like you're always scarce on time, you're running from one meeting to the next Zoom meeting to your kid that's playing in the living room. Okay, so you feel like you're always out of time. What does it do? Well, scarcity mindset, when it kicks in our brains, it forces trade-off thinking. You're constantly thinking, if I do this, then I can't do that. And in the short term, it helps you get the immediate stuff done. But in the long term, it makes matters worse because the stuff that you push to the side accumulates. And in the case of financial stuff that you push to the side, if it has an interest on it, it accumulates quite a bit because you weren't focused, for example, on that one credit card while you may have been, let's say, focused on paying off the car. I was actually introduced to the concept of a scarcity mindset, or having a mindset where you feel like nothing you do is enough because you don't have enough of fill in the blank here, usually money or time, by none other than Oprah. I remember coming home from school and sitting on the floor, grandma was watching Oprah, and of all people to be on that day, Will and Jada were there discussing their marriage. And I know we've all had the situationship jokes for over a year now, or 2 years. What is time in a pandemic? But I remember Will saying, and I went and looked up the transcript to make sure that I didn't imagine it, that he wakes Jada up over the light bill, even though he's a multimillionaire. And for some reason, that anecdote stuck with me. Years before I finished college, years before I got into working in personal finances, that he felt like he couldn't shake the mentality of nothing he does is going to be enough financially to provide for himself, his wife, and his family. And that just resonated with me, feeling like nothing you do is enough. And he spoke about how hard it is to shake. And so I got really curious as I started working in my communities with folks who were working their tailbones off. You know, one, what is enough money? And two, once they got the money and I could mathematically prove it out in a spreadsheet to them that they have enough, they wouldn't believe me. So how to show them, how to prove it out, that you can shift your mindset outside of what our brain does to us automatically when we're surviving something, surviving poverty, surviving working paycheck to paycheck conditions. How do we break out of a mindset? Remember, the end goal of any conversation I'm having with you, dear listener, is to make your life easier. Speaking of ways to make your life easier, if you're getting ready to start a podcast and you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to get started. It's free. Anchor distributes your podcast for you across multiple platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Their app allows you to edit straight from your phone or computer, and there's no minimum listenership to start earning revenue. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So that was my thinking. How do we do this? Well, I do have some solutions for you. They are not easy, and I want to preface that in order to break a scarcity mindset, it's not really a break, it's more of a transition. Transitioning away from scarcity into a different type of mindset. Some people have used phrases like abundance mindsets, or I would say just living. Can you just allow yourself to live? And this is reality, and I'm living my life. And living your life is important, to not just survive your life, but enjoy it, and to eventually get to the place where personally, financially, you are thriving. So I have for you 3 ways that you can slowly defeat scarcity mindset. And I want to be completely honest with you. It took me years to put scarcity mindset in its place. Years. This is not something that you're going to likely get done in 3 months or 6 months or as a 2022 goal, but it's something that I have found hugely helpful in shifting how I evaluate opportunities. Because the catch-22 is the same techniques that allow you to survive hold you back in evaluating further opportunities in life. And so Forbes actually did a study where they found that CEOs, particularly CEOs who have scarcity mindset as they defined it, were very strict on what resources could and could not be provided, because they saw it as, if we do this, then we can't do that. They never really thought about how can we do both of these things for our company, our brand, our employees. They found that CEOs who suffer from scarcity mindset also suffer from lower profits, also suffer from a lack of imagination in the business sense. And so it's not just a psychological, emotional thing. It has deep implications for how you evaluate your financial opportunities and how you evaluate your career opportunities. So with all that being said, let me go to my first bit of advice. You need to flip your mindset on its head, because it's something you've been doing automatically, my guess is, for at least a couple years. So my first bit of advice is flip your thinking. If you are thinking, for example, if you are someone who is in the job market right now, that there are not enough good jobs out there, my dear friend, you are incorrect. There are enough good jobs out here. And so I would invite you to flip your sentence that you are talking to yourself. Remember, I asked you to tell yourself, how do I talk to myself? If you're saying something like, there are not enough good jobs out here, flip it to, I would be a great asset in any company. I know how to clean up a file share that is a disaster. I know how to organize documents. I know how to keep VIPs calm and listen to our next steps. Flip your thinking and keep this focus of telling yourself the truth and not the worst case scenario. Because scarcity mindset will almost always orient you to the worst case scenario. Flip your thinking. Not enough good jobs out there? Tell yourself the truth. I would be a great asset in any company. I would. So I need to find the company that matches up with what I provide. And this job market, my friends, is in your favor. Although it is crazy, wages are up, opportunities are up. Take it and run with it. Second bit of advice around this topic. You either have to find your community or use your community to keep you accountable. I'm talking about the group texts with you and 1 or 2 or 3 other best friends. I'm talking about the people you trust to tell you the truth no matter what you're doing. You see, the thing is that attitudes rub off. And if scarcity-minded individuals surround you, you need to counteract that to make a career change. That's a quote from that Forbes article/study that I'm referencing. That's hard. It's really hard, especially if it's something you grew up with or grew up around. But you need to expand your circles. You need to think of yourself as Venn diagrams. Who else do you know that is ready to change some part of their life? Can you have a friendly relationship with them? Can you keep each other accountable? Accountability buddies work, whether it's for the gym or drinking water or just changing how you talk to yourself. And my question to you to keep you centered is, am I telling myself the truth? Is it true that I'm broke? Or is it true that I'm struggling? How am I defining that? And have I moved the marker for what the answer to that question is on myself? Last tip, third tip, I want you to ask yourself for what you really, really want. If you just thought of yourself as a video game character, just pause the whole thing. Look around at your current surroundings. What in your current circumstances do you not like? Do you not want to be permanent? If you feel like you're in a room that's too small, or maybe the paint is chipped, and you're like, I want to move. I don't want to have roommates anymore. I want to repaint my room so that it feels like a welcoming environment. What would you change? Okay, we're going to classify that as temporary. It's not going to be permanent anymore. All right, what do we want? And not just the castle in the cloud stuff, right? Not just like I want 4 Teslas and a mansion on a beach. What would you want? When you ask yourself what you want, you might sometimes be surprised at the answers you get, particularly if you've never really applied brain power to what life would look like when you're not just in a constant cycle of survival mode. Breaking out of thought patterns takes time, but if you do it repeatedly, even just once a day, you will slowly shift how you're evaluating your day-to-day circumstances. It is too easy to fall into despair when you have been in a cycle for a long time. And I'm not a therapist. This is not therapeutic advice. This is a mindset conversation. And I highly recommend anyone who can access therapy engage with therapy, especially in our continuingly stressful times. But the thing about scarcity that is known in both a psychological approach, a business approach, is that if you live with scarcity mindset for too long, you will recreate the conditions of scarcity even when you are no longer in those conditions. So for example, let's give a typical extra example. Let's say you put yourself through school. You work 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs. You never slept. You made it. You killed your student debt before you exited your 20s. And now you're just exhausted. You go boop on the floor. And you're working one job for the first time in your life. And you don't know what to do with yourself. Maybe you just sleep more. Maybe you kind of just stay still. Maybe more likely, you start to recreate the conditions of scarcity. You're like, well, I've always worked 3 jobs. Surely I could work 2. And you just pick up a second job because you have nothing else to do with your time because you never had anything else to do with your time. And slowly, you recreate the conditions where time was scarce. And maybe, God forbid, you recreate the conditions when money was scarce by upping other things in your lifestyle that you can't yet afford, or contributing to things that you've always wanted to contribute to, and now you're contributing 5, 6, 7, 8 years worth of extra. I know that's a vague example, but I really want you to imagine where in your life might you have done this if this conversation applies to you. And that's why I am talking about it. As a financial coach, as a career coach, I need people, once they get good, to not take the ground out from under your feet because of habit. Because that's what it is. Scarcity mindset is automatic, and after a certain point, it becomes habitual. And so creating the practices that defeat scarcity mindset, even if you're still in a scarcity situation, are key to making sure that you don't chip away at your own foundation. You worked hard to build that. And I don't want to see anyone feel like the ground under their feet isn't stable, especially after a long period of hard work. To sum it up in a very cliche way, self-awareness pays dividends. This is time back to you, money back to you, and most importantly, in this conversation, energy back to you, as you no longer occupy yourself with planning for the worst case scenario and start planning for the scenarios that are actually happening in your life. It makes you a more present person, a more aware person, and hopefully a calmer and more well-rested person. You deserve to be well paid. You deserve your brain power back, and you deserve to enjoy your life. This is Samantha Mantra, signing off. Take care and enjoy the rest of your payday.